Okay, so now that we were done entering in the information on our mobile device, we're going to want to go ahead and set up the central tabulator. Central tabulator requires .NET 2.0 just like the compact framework mobile version. So you'll just want to make sure that you have that installed before you go for it. It's really much simpler than the mobile install that we just had to do. And installing our program doesn't take very much either. So we're just going to go through. The only thing to keep in mind is that you're probably going to want to have this installed for everybody. Then we just kind of do a next, finish, and our program will go ahead and install. You'll probably need to have administrator rights. That's probably the only real gotcha that we need to keep in mind. So, okay, now that that's finished, you'll see that I have a new desktop icon. It says Central Tabulator FRC Data Collection. So to start it up, all you do is just double click on that, and then we get this frame here. You've got several options. You can either open a Central Tabulator database, open a Data Collector database, New Tabulator, and New Data Collector, or quit. Since this is our first time running the software, we're going to definitely want to go ahead and do a new Central Tabulator database. This is just asking you where you want to save it. I would suggest saving it in your My Documents folder. You don't have to give it a special name, you just probably call it central.db so you know what it is. Now that we've done that, you can see that the toolbars at the top have changed. We've got some other options such as import data collection, view standings, and tabulate match prediction. Basically what we're going to do at this point is I'm going to go ahead and minimize the tabulation program. And I'm going to go ahead and put my mobile device in its cradle so that it'll synchronize with my computer. Again, we're going to just do a guest partnership because we don't need to set it up for all the other stuff. Once we get on our mobile device, we're going to go to My Windows Mobile-Based Device, and in here we'll find this main database. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder on my desktop, and we'll call it Match Data. And then I'll just do a simple copy, or just a drag from the mobile device. And then we've got the match data on our computer now. And then we'll just call this something descriptive like, for instance, 15 April 2009. Now let's go back to our mainframe. And then we're going to go to Import Data Collection. We go to Desktop. We're going to find Match Data. Then we just find the 15 April 2009. And then it's going to show us a preview of the data that was in that database that was on that mobile device. We're going to definitely want to get the robots and definitely get the matches, but we probably do not need to import the teams. Well, you'll want to do that one time. So this is probably the only time that I would suggest doing it is on your first try here. So what we're going to look at over here is the import settings. The clobber resolution is if it finds a match between something in your central tabulator database and the importation database, which is it going to do? Is it going to use the device data or is it going to use the tabulator? So in this case we're going to just say use the device data. We do not want to back up before import this time around. We do want to import the teams, the robots, and the matches, and then we just click OK. Just like we saw on the device, it's not going to give you a progress bar, it's just basically going to go ahead and run through that. And then once we've done that, we now have some data inside the system with which we can kind of look at. So now let's say we wanted to look at this particular match, which I've gone ahead and popped up here. You can see who was in this match in this left view. In this right view, you can see the quality scores and then the actual scores at the end. And then we can also look at the statistics. So each team has a different average weighted score, for instance, and we also have the number of times a team happened to be red or blue or whatever, and the number of losses as well. Then finally, you may want to tabulate a match prediction. What this does is it uses the data that's stored inside its database to try to decide who's going to win a match, basically. So I'm just going through here and just randomly selecting some teams and putting them on an alliance. And then this is going to help you kind of decide how your team is going to do in competition. So you can see that the total weighted score of the red team is significantly higher than the blue team, and that the red team actually has, red and blue both have the same number of wins and loses here. So that's basically it for the central tabulator. Now I'm going to go ahead and close the active database, and that'll let me actually either open an existing data collector database or start a new one. I'm going to go ahead and start a new data collector database, and we're just going to call this main instead of central like we did last time. So now we have the data collector menu, collection menu, and this is basically the same as the device. It is going to run a little bit faster than the device did, just because it's on a regular computer. So we can do the same kinds of things. You can see I have the same option to search, and it looks very similar to what the device looked like. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is just fill out some robots here. And then once we fill out those robots, I'm going to go ahead and transfer them back to the device so you can see how that works. It's not really important that we go through the steps of creating the matches and everything, because if you paid attention while we were on the device, it's basically the same. But this reloading of data onto your device is probably going to be really important for some of you, because you're probably not going to want to sit down and actually go through setting up all of the robot scouting data or the matches on your handheld. Okay, so we've gone through, set up a couple of robots. If you remember, the data that we had on the device before, it had only it had some match data and all that kind of good stuff. So now when we go back into the device after we load this new database, we shouldn't see anything. The only thing to keep in mind when you're overloading the database on your device is that it has to be named main. And when you're loading the database, you really don't want to have it running at that time either. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just delete the main database on the device, and we're sure we want to do that. And then I'm just going to simply just copy over this main database, and it's going to go on here just fine.